You ever get that feeling you've been completely blindsided by something? An event that just changes everything out of nowhere? A market crash, some crazy new tech, a global pandemic? We spend so much time trying to predict what's next. But what if the stuff that really matters is, by its very nature, impossible to predict? Well, that's the powerful idea we're going to dive into today. So, to get our heads around this world of, radical uncertainty, the philosopher Nassim Taleb tells this great story. Picture a turkey. For 1,000 days straight, life is good. I mean, really good. Every single day, a friendly human shows up with food. The turkey's confidence just grows and grows. It's got 1,000 data points all saying the same thing. Tomorrow's going to be great just like today. Safe, predictable, and delicious. But what happens on day 1001? Well, that's the day that 1,000-day trend of good luck comes to a very sudden, very catastrophic end. And that is a Black Swan event. It's that exact moment when the past stops being a reliable guide for the future. For our poor turkey, let's just say this new understanding comes a little too late. All right, so let's break this down. What exactly makes an event a Black Swan? Because it's more than just a surprise, right? It has a very specific DNA, and understanding it explains why these things end up shaping our history, our markets, our entire lives. The name itself comes from this really fascinating historical mistake. For centuries, Europeans just knew that all swans were white. It was a fact, like the sky is blue. In ancient Rome, saying something was as rare as a black swan was basically like saying, when pigs fly. It meant impossible. And then, explorers get to Australia, and guess what they find? Black swans. A single bird that just completely shattered centuries of accepted truth. And that story perfectly illustrates the three key ingredients of a black swan. First, it's an outlier, a total shock. Nothing in your past experience prepared you for it. Second, it has an extreme, game-changing impact. And third, and this is the really human part, after it happens, we're fantastic at explaining it away. We cook up stories that make it seem like, oh yeah, we should have seen that coming all along.
Okay, so let's take this framework and apply it to the biggest global shock most of us have ever lived through, the COVID-19 pandemic. Was it a true black swan? You know, the answer is actually pretty debated.
I mean, it sure felt like the ultimate black swan, didn't it? A tiny little virus brings the entire planet to a grinding halt. It was an outlier, and its impact was absolutely massive. World-altering, for sure. But the story isn't quite that straightforward. And this is where the debate gets really interesting. Taleb himself, the guy who came up with the term, argues that the pandemic was not a black swan. He calls it a white swan, something that was basically guaranteed to happen sooner or later. For years, scientists were warning us, saying a global pandemic wasn't a question of if, but when. Now, the counter-argument is that, okay, maybe a pandemic was predictable in theory, but the specific nature of this one and the sheer scale of the global lockdowns and economic chaos, that part was completely off the charts.
And honestly, the argument for its extreme impact is a total slam dunk. Global GDP took a nosedive, stock markets had their worst run since 2008, supply chains just fell apart, and billions of us were stuck at home. So you can argue all day about whether it was predictable, but there is zero debate about that second criteria. The impact was absolutely extreme. It fits the black swan profile perfectly.
But you know what? Maybe arguing about what to call it kind of misses the bigger picture. The COVID experience taught us something absolutely crucial. The real game isn't about getting better at predicting the future. It's about building things, our lives, our companies, our systems that don't shatter when the unpredictable finally shows up. Or even better, things that actually get stronger.
And that leads us to an idea Taleb thinks is way more important than the black swan itself. It's called antifragility. And this is a concept that takes us way beyond just being tough or resilient. It's a whole new way of thinking. So think about it. If I ask you for the opposite of fragile, you'd probably say robust or strong, right? But think about a package. You'd write fragile, handle with care on a box of glass. The true opposite wouldn't just be a box that survives being dropped. It would be a box that has a label saying, please mishandle, a package that actually benefits from being tossed around. And that, in a nutshell, is antifragility. It's this incredible property of systems that literally get stronger when they're exposed to stress, to shocks, to volatility, even to failures. They don't just resist damage, they feed on it. So let's line them up. You've got the fragile. Think of a champagne flute. It hates surprises. You drop it, it shatters. End of story. Then you've got the robust. Think of a steel block. You drop it, and nothing. It just sits there, unchanged. It resists the shock. But then you have the antifragile. Think about your own immune system. It gets exposed to a virus, it fights, it learns, and it comes out stronger and smarter for the next time. It gains from disorder.
So how does this magic work? The secret is something called an asymmetric payoff. Basically, an anti-fragile system is set up so that it has way more to gain from a random surprise than it has to lose from one. The potential downside is small and limited, but the potential upside, it's huge, maybe even unlimited. Now, I know this might sound a little abstract, but this is where it gets super practical. This isn't about gazing into a crystal ball. It's about setting yourself up to win no matter what randomness the world throws at you.
One of the core strategies is called the barbell. The idea is you avoid the mushy, mediocre middle and you combine two extremes. For example, in investing, you could put 90% of your money in something incredibly safe, like cash or government bonds. Then, you take the other 10% and you put it into some really high-risk, high-reward ventures. This way, the most you can possibly lose is 10%, but your potential gain, well, the sky's the limit.
And this idea goes way beyond just money. Building anti-fragile systems means making sure the people in charge have skin in the game, that they feel the consequences of their decisions. It means using decentralization so that one failure doesn't bring the whole thing crashing down. It means you have to embrace small failures. The restaurant industry is so resilient because individual restaurants fail all the time, and every failure teaches the whole system what works and what doesn't. And finally, it means building in diversification and extra layers so you've always got a backup plan.
And get this. This isn't just some abstract theory. It seems to be hardwired right into our own psychology. We all hear about post-traumatic stress, PTSD, but did you know about post-traumatic growth? That's the phenomenon where people actually become stronger, wiser, and more resilient after going through a crisis. And studies suggest it is 10 times more common than PTSD. That one stat is incredible. It tells us we might be naturally designed to gain from disorder.
So here's the big takeaway. Black swans are going to happen. That's a guarantee. The challenge isn't to get better at being fortune tellers. It's to become better architects of anti-fragility. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. How can you start to redesign your own world, your finances, your career, your habits, not just to survive the next big shock, but to actually come out the other side stronger because of it?